Daniel Carter lived what most people would call a perfect life in a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside the busy chaos of New York City, where he shared a beautiful home with his wife Laura and their young son Ethan. And from the outside, their family looked like a picture of stability, love, and comfort. Daniel spent long hours working in the city, growing his business, and making sure his family had everything they needed, while Laura spent most of her days caring for the house, raising their son, and following the calm routine that had slowly become the rhythm of their lives. But behind that peaceful routine, something had quietly changed over the years. Their marriage was still strong, and they still cared about each other deeply. But the excitement and passion they once shared had slowly faded into something more predictable and ordinary. Neither of them talked about it, but the silence between them slowly grew. Then one windy afternoon, everything began to change. While visiting New York City for a simple errand, Laura was suddenly caught in a strong gust of wind that pushed her off balance and sent her stumbling across the street, where she collided with a young man she had never seen before. His name was Adrian Cole. He was confident, charming, and much younger than her, with an easy smile that immediately caught Laura's attention. When Adrian noticed that Laura had injured her arm during the fall, he kindly invited her upstairs to his apartment so he could help clean the wound. And although Laura hesitated at first, the situation felt strangely exciting and different from her quiet, everyday life. Adrian's apartment was filled with books everywhere, creating a quiet and interesting atmosphere that felt completely different from Laura's organized suburban home. They talked for a while, laughing and sharing stories, and before Laura left, Adrian handed her a book and casually told her she could return it whenever she liked. That small moment stayed in Laura's mind long after she returned home. Days passed, but she kept thinking about Adrian and the strange excitement she had felt during their meeting. Finally, she convinced herself that returning the book would be harmless, and one afternoon she went back to the city and knocked on Adrian's door. Adrian welcomed her warmly, and their conversation soon became more personal and playful, filled with a quiet tension that both of them could feel. The distance between them slowly disappeared, and they shared a kiss that instantly crossed a line Laura knew she should never have crossed. What began as curiosity quickly turned into a secret relationship that Laura carefully hid from the life she had built with Daniel. She started making small excuses to visit the city, telling Daniel she needed to shop or meet friends, while in reality she was meeting Adrian in his apartment, where their relationship grew more intense with every visit. With Adrian, Laura felt something she had not experienced in years: excitement, danger, and the powerful feeling of being desired again. But every time she returned home to her husband and son, guilt followed her. Daniel slowly began to notice the changes in his wife. He saw the nervousness in her voice, the way she sometimes avoided his questions, and the strange distance that had appeared between them. At first, he tried to ignore the feeling, hoping he was imagining things. But the doubt kept growing until he finally hired a private investigator to quietly follow Laura and discover the truth. A few days later, the investigator returned with photographs that confirmed Daniel's worst fear. The pictures clearly showed Laura entering Adrian's apartment and spending hours there. In that moment, Daniel's world quietly collapsed. But instead of confronting Laura, Daniel decided to meet Adrian himself. He went to Adrian's apartment pretending to be interested in buying rare books, and Adrian, completely unaware of who he really was, welcomed him politely and began showing him books from his collection. During their conversation, Adrian casually mentioned Laura, speaking about her with a familiarity that slowly ignited Daniel's anger. Then Adrian showed him a small snow globe and said Laura had admired it during one of her visits. At that moment, something inside Daniel broke. The anger and humiliation he had been holding suddenly exploded. Without thinking, Daniel grabbed the snow globe and struck Adrian with it. The attack was sudden and violent. Adrian collapsed to the floor instantly and never stood up again. The room fell silent as Daniel realized what he had just done. Panic took control, and he quickly cleaned the apartment, carried Adrian's body to his car, and drove far outside the city where he left the body in a landfill before returning home as if nothing had happened. But guilt has a way of slowly destroying the people who try to hide it. Soon the police began investigating Adrian's disappearance, and Laura grew worried when she could no longer reach him. Eventually, Daniel confessed the truth to her, revealing that he had killed Adrian in a moment of uncontrollable rage. The truth shattered Laura. Her secret relationship had led to a man's death, and now both she and Daniel were trapped in a terrible secret. One night they sat quietly in their car outside a police station, staring at the building where they could walk in and confess everything. Neither of them spoke. Inside that building waited the truth. But outside, the car waited the rest of their lives. The engine started, and the story ended with one question. Would they walk inside? Or drive away and live forever with the secret of what they had done?